All right, moving into our next phylum, which is Nidaria. They are called the nidarians. They're jellyfish. And they have one body opening, which is the mouth. They also have two tissue layers. So this is the first time we have a phylum that is showing gastrulation, but there is no middle layer. So the gastralized animal only has an ectoderm and it has an endoderm, no mesoderm. So for this animal, if you didn't know, and I said, well, gee, does a jellyfish have a reproductive system or, a pulmonary system, and you didn't know, or if I said, does it have a heart, and you really didn't know, if you could think, all right, he only has two tissue layers, there's no mesoderm that actually forms those body systems, then absolutely he does not have anything like a skeletal system or a reproductive or circulatory system, because he doesn't have a mesoderm. He only has that outer, the ectoderm, and the endoderm. The outer layer functions in protecting the internal body. The inner layer functions mainly in digestion. So we have an outer layer and we have an inner layer. The nidarians, these are going to include our corals, sea anemones, and our jellyfish. The nidarians have radial symmetry. So they have that type of symmetry where the tentacles, if you can think of a jellyfish, or the corals where they have arms radiating out from that central axis. There's not going to be a head formation. There's not going to be any kind of brain. Now the tentacles, think of your jellyfish. The tentacles have arms and they have these stinging cells called cnidocytes. And I'm going to show you a picture of what these looks like. But this is the nerve portion. And we did say that ectoderm dealt with nerves and brain. Well, he doesn't have a brain, but he does have this nerve net. And the nerve net contains these stinging cells called cnidocytes. In each cnidocyte, there is a little barb called a pneumaticist. And these are coiled up and they're spring-like. Just think of, like a slinky or something. Something's really coiled. And on the end of that coil, there's a very, very sharp barb. And that barb has poison on it. So it has got a type of pressure that releases these barbs. So when something comes close to the jellyfish, whether it be his prey or maybe it's you, maybe he's trying to get you to go away, then what happens is these pneumatocysts actually fire outside of the cnidocyte. That coil becomes uncoiled and you feel the sting of the barb. Now, if it is a poisonous jellyfish, then you are going to probably be on the down end of that poison and it's probably going to hurt pretty bad. But definitely this is the way that the jellyfish can get its prey, bring it in through the mouth, and start the digesting process. This is hydrostatic pressure. So there is water inside of these pneumatocysts, and it's a type of osmotic pressure called hydrostatic. When you've got osmosis going on and the pressure builds up to 150 atmospheres, which I'm not going to ask you, by the way. I don't care. It's just sort of a reference point. This hydrostatic pressure is a type of osmotic pressure. It pushes out this coil so that these barbs can sting their prey. Now, the action of this hydrostatic pressure pushing out this pneumaticist barb to sting its prey is the fastest movement in the animal kingdom. So that is something you need to know. Once these pneumatocysts fire out, it can't recoil for a period of time. So each pneumaticist is going to fire once, but the nerve net that is surrounding the entire jellyfish has got hundreds of thousands of these stinging cells. and they're mostly located on the tentacles. They're not really located on the top of the jellyfish. People can go by and even with the box jellyfish, which we'll talk about in just a minute, they can pull them up by the bell, which is the very top portion of a jellyfish, because there's not really any stinging cells there. The stinging cells are concentrated on the tentacles. So they have these cells called cnidocytes. Within the cell is a cyst, and that cyst has got a little capsule with this spring-loaded poisonous barb that when it detects any kind of prey or a predator, that hydrostatic pressure, that buildup of water that's inside, is going to force that barb out so that it can sting its prey, bring it into its mouth, and start the digestion process. So that movement is the quickest in the animal kingdom. That can happen really, really fast. And if you've ever been stung by a jellyfish, you know what I'm talking about. It will take a while for that to be coiled back. So once that nematicist fires, it's only going to sting one time. Now here is the picture. So you can see over here the picture on the right, the entire cell is called a cnidocyte. C-Y-T-E means cell. Within it, we have the nematicist. And so it shows you what the nematicist actually looks like, and you can see that it has got this tubing that is all coiled up. And there is a trigger that detects. So on each nematicist, there is a small trigger that detects the motion of a predator or prey, and it forces the hydrostatic pressure back here, forces that tube out, and the barb at the end is very sharp, and it is what does the stinging. So as the osmotic, now I'm gonna require that you know hydrostatic. Your book talks about osmotic. There's a lot of different kinds of osmotic pressures. This is a hydrostatic pressure, and when it increases, it's going to discharge this nematicist, and it's very forceful, it's very quick. The barb is so sharp, we felt the barb before. I don't know about you, but I've been stung by a jellyfish, but it also is sharp enough to actually penetrate a crab shell. So with a lot of your jellyfish, small crustaceans are what they feed on, and they have to be able to sting them past that shell that they have, and the barb can do that. They're very, very sharp. All right, cell's lining, now it has its gut is called a gastrovascular cavity. So the central cavity belongs to the one we talked about before, porifera. And now we have a gastrovascular cavity because gastro implies that there's some digestion in a stomach. Now this is not a stomach. But what's going to happen is the cells that line the gastrovascular cavity release digestive enzymes that the prey has been captured up here in the tentacles and brought in. Here's the mouth. So this is the only opening they have. And so we're going to have food come in. It's going to be digested in this cavity, and it is going to turn around and it is going to exit out of the same opening. That's what we call a two-way gut. So the mouth and the anus, there's not a true anus, but food is coming in and it's ejected from the same opening. Of course, we have tentacles at the top, and this digestive cavity, there's some layers of cells in here that are secreting the enzymes, breaking the food down, and this is the way the jellyfish is digesting its food.